United States. In fact, you can say that the other 8 in 9 are also salespeople. They spend their time persuading, convincing, and influencing others to give up something they've got in exchange for what we've got. This is the essence of business, isn't it? In fact, Henry Ford said this: nothing happens until someone sells something. Think about that. Nothing happens until someone sells something. It's true with healthy chocolate. It's true with guitars. It's true with, in fact, everything. The day that the Catholic Church stops, or any church, stops getting donations, they close their doors. Sales matter. All right, so here's the question. If we've established that, 15 million salespeople, nothing happens until someone sells something, the question I have for you is why do we hate them so? Right? If they're so vital to business, why can we not stand salespeople? In fact, I would argue that a lot of companies work hard to get around calling them salespeople. We do too. We're distributors. We share chocolate. The thing is this: is that salespeople and salesmanship is kind of like the Rodney Dangerfield of business, right? They don't get the respect that they deserve. They don't. And that term is avoided through a lot of sales. In fact, working at Toll Brothers for 18 years, I can promise you, we worked around that too. The salespeople themselves didn't want to be called salespeople. It's got a bad connotation at times. Why do we hate them? I'll tell you why. Let's dig into it right now. Because in my experience working with salespeople my entire career, and I've worked with some of the best ones, and I've seen a lot of the best ones here in this business, there are different types. There really are 5 different types of salespeople that I'd like to walk you through. Okay? And you tell me if you disagree with this, but I think that you'll find, these will be familiar to you. Okay? The first type of salespeople, person, that we don't like, is called the closer. I call him the closer, right? This is a polyester-wearing, aqua velvet smelling, pinky ring guy. By the way, my dad told me never trust anybody with a pinky ring. Pinky ring kind of guy. And this is the closer. This is by definition the closer. And this is one of the reasons why salespeople have a bad connotation. You know why? Because this guy's philosophy is this. And every one of them I'm going to walk you through have a certain philosophy about sales. Here's this guy's philosophy. He will tell you anything to buy a car. The guy's a crook. He will tell you anything, right? He will tell you he will name his next child after you. It doesn't matter. And by any means necessary. That's this guy's philosophy. By the way, this guy's dying. I'll explain in a minute why this guy's dying. But this is one of the reasons why sales has a bad reputation. Has anybody been experienced? Has anybody been approached by a closer? Typically 2 steps on a car ride. It's not just car sales, it's anything. All right, let's go to the next one. So let's take the closer and let's put him on the shelf. All right, let's talk about the next one. The next one is the dumper. Now, the dumper has done their homework, right? They know everything about that product that is ever known. They've called the manufacturer. They knew every statistic. They've called the manufacturer's mother to find out how the manufacturer was born, how he was raised, right? Stuff you don't need to know. Their philosophy, the dumper's philosophy, is to hit you with the tsunami of information. Till in their minds, you'll finally just give in and buy. Has anybody experienced the dumper? Yeah. We had that a lot of Toll Brothers, where these poor people would walk in just to look at models. That's all. And they would just get smacked in the face, just spewed upon with this information. It was nasty. Okay? The dumper. All right, so we have the closer, we have the dumper. Let's go to the next one. This is the one I probably like the least, and maybe you too. The pusher. Now, let me just tell you a side story that has to do with this, okay? And this is I understand I'm bringing my own personal feelings into this, but sometimes I have to make my point. And here it is. In Reno, Nevada, and this tells you the times in which we live. In Reno, Nevada, there's one bookstore. One, okay? Down this street, down Virginia, called Barnes & Noble. That is the only bookstore left. Now, what kind of society are we living in? Well, there's one bookstore in the entire town. And I understand we have the Kindle and we have the electronic. It's just not the same. It's not the same. You're pulling out a book and smelling it and turning the pages and writing the margins. There's nothing better than a book, right? And the electronic version, thank you. Unfortunately, it's a dying business. So, I regress. I go to Barnes & Noble. I go to Barnes & Noble every week. Every week. I'm addicted to books. I love reading. And there's a lady there at Barnes & Noble. Third stall in. You line up, and there's 6 stalls, and she's the third one in. Right? And she is, by all accounts, on this planet, my nemesis. And I'll tell you why. Because as I go through the line, I seem to get her every time. And she knows who I am because I'm there once a week. And here's what she says. She starts off by saying, "Do you have a Barnes & Noble membership?" Right? And I tell her, "No, I don't want a membership. We've had this discussion 82 times. I don't want your membership." And then she tells me, "Well, you get 10%. I go, "I don't care if I get 100% off. I will never give you my information to get a membership." Now, am I anti-membership? No. I'm anti-pusher. Stop it. Leave me alone. Let me buy my book and get the hell out. Right? Has anybody experienced a pusher? Okay. The closer, his philosophy is by any means necessary. Right? The dumper is tsunami of information until you just give in. The pusher's philosophy is to make you feel stupid. To belittle you, to make you feel like if you don't do what I'm telling you, you're a moron. That bugs me. All right. And then we have the winker. The winker. You guys have experienced this guy. Here's the philosophy this guy has. First of all, you walk in, I'm just using the car lot as an example. This can apply to any part of this. You walk on the car lot, and this guy is grabbing your hand a little too long. And he's a close talker, and he pats you on the back, right? And he talks to your children, wants to know their names, wants to know what position they play in football. He doesn't care about what position your son plays in football. What he cares about, here's his philosophy. His philosophy is, if they like me, they'll buy. They'll buy. All they have to do is like me. They have to feel like I care. And frankly, it's completely fake, and it insults me. That's his philosophy. That's her philosophy. To get you close enough to feel like, oh, what a God. I have to buy now. Right? Let's go back to the definition for just a second. The practice of investigating and satisfying customers' needs through a process that is efficient. Fair. Right? Fair. That takes the closer out. Sincere. That takes the winker out. Mutually beneficial. Right? And aimed at a long-term productive relationship. And the relationship takes the pusher. Okay? So, that being said, if we know why now, just take a glance at why sales has such a bad reputation. The question is, what kind of salespeople should we be? And I like to define it as the consultant. The consultant. I learned something at Toll Brothers, and that is that, and it was much to my fault. I created pushers as we have our sales meetings. I created winkers. I created, to a degree, dumpers. And then I realized one day, sitting in my sales office, I told them all to stop. I said, stop selling. Stop. This isn't working. Here's what I want you to do, and this is how I define it. Just help them buy. That's it. Just help them buy. Now, one of the things I learned actually from Paula Pritchard was to ask questions about that person. As you ask questions about that person, you find a need. And as you find that need, be sincere in trying to fulfill that need. That is what I would say is the true definition of a salesperson. Think back in your experience, and we've all bought millions of things in here. Think back to your experience and ask yourself, what was the best salesperson I've ever worked with? And I bet if you really think about it and then classify that person, you wouldn't even consider them really a salesperson. You would consider them someone that just helped you fill a need in your life. That's what salesmanship is. Again, 15 million people are salesmen in the United States. We gotta get around from this bad connotation. We need to all be salespeople, right? We need to all be salespeople. In fact, there's something that's going on now, and I told you a few minutes ago, the closer is dying. And here's what I mean by that. And I found this out when I was told. One of the reasons why we hate this guy is because he had all the information, right? I walk on the lot, and that car behind him, I don't know anything about that car. I don't know what the value is. I don't know what the history is. I have no idea what it costs to insure. And now I walk on, and in the palm of my hand, I can go to Carfax.com, right? I can look up the history of that car. I can look up the price, the Kelley Blue Book value of that car. I can look up what it's going to cost to insure that car. I can look and find out what the regional supply and demand of that specific vehicle is. His information is being taken away, and that's a good thing for consumers, right? He can't bull drive us anymore. He can't, by any means necessary, make this sale because we have never been a more informed consumer base in the history of the world than we are right now. So this guy's dying. I promise you that. But what I would also promise you is salespeople are not going away. I remember Bob told, the CEO told us, when the internet first started to appear, there was one of his vice presidents had an idea, and he had a belief that salespeople with the internet would go away. He was convinced that you'd walk into the sales office and there'd be a kiosk, and the kiosk would have like a light mechanism on it and say, "Hello, welcome to Toll. What would you like?" And you'd like, "I'd like a house." "Which one?" "This one." Would you like 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms?" "I'd like 4 bedrooms." And we were convinced that it is a possibility. It's not outside the realm of thinking that maybe salespeople would evaporate. You know what? Didn't happen. In fact, you know that from 2000 to 2012, the projected sales force for the United States actually went up? I find that remarkable. I find that also remarkable. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics says that by 2020, we will add 2.5 million salespeople to the market. 2.5 million. Salespeople are not going away. Okay? But the dynamic of the sales force is changing, and we need to be aware of that. You have to understand, success in selling now depends much, much less on tricks or hoodwinkery than on some fundamental human capabilities. You don't need to be a pusher. You don't need to be a dumper. You don't need to be anything but a consultant, a well-informed consultant. In fact, the capacity to sell isn't some unnatural adaptation to merciless world of commerce. It's part of who we are. It is. And I learned this when I was 7 years old. The first time I remember in my life ever selling something to anybody, I was 7 years old. I was living in Las Vegas, Nevada. My dad, and my mom and I stopped by Kmart on Rancho and Washington in Las Vegas. And by the way, if you're in Las Vegas, you don't want to be on Rancho and Washington. But we were in Kmart, and my mom and dad were looking at stuff and home housewares and stuff like that. And I went to go look at toys. I was 7, and I saw something. Get emotional. I pulled off the top shelf. I will never forget this till I die. I pulled off the top shelf. It was a plastic Roman helmet and a body gear, and a sword. Right? And I remember the feeling because I had no idea that anybody in the planet made such wonderful things. It was brand new to me. I could not believe that God would allow such a remarkable toy to exist. And so I remember taking that, and I went to my mom, and I told my mom, I got to have it. You have to. It was $7. says, you have to buy this one. And she's like, no, right? Because she knew snacks. So I remember going to my dad, knowing and thinking from the walk between my mom and my dad, thinking, this is it. If you don't do this, is the first time I ever sold anything in my life. And I remember going to my dad, and I tugged my dad's jacket lapel, and I said, Dad, I just saw this. And I promise you, my life will change forever. I told him, I will never take this off. I will wear it on my wedding day. And I promise I will not hit my sister with it very hard. My dad kneeled down. I remember this clearly. My dad kneeled down. And I did make it funny, because I wanted to sell it. I knew that responded to my dad. My dad knelt down, he looked at me, and he goes, you got it. So of course my next question was, can I wear it out of the store? Right? That was my next question. My point is this, selling is a human endeavor. You don't have to, I mean, it is important that we study the best. I'm going to talk about that. But it really is a natural thing. And we shouldn't avoid it. We certainly shouldn't be ashamed of it. We should study the best. As you guys know these people better than I do. If you look at Zig Ziglar, I mean, Janelle was talking to me yesterday. She said you worked with Zig Ziglar, right? You went on tour. I mean, who could say that? I mean, I would get a tattoo if that was the case for me. I toured with Zig, right? But Dale Carnegie, and of course Mary Kay, there's 100 other great salespeople that we can study. And if you read them, what you really find out is it's not hoodwinkery. It's just human nature. And Ron from Ronco, I gotta tell you, this guy needs to be in the Selling Hall of Fame for one reason and one reason only. He invented and sold. It's one thing to invent something, it's another thing to sell it. He invented and sold. I can't believe I'm even saying this. Spray-on hair. Spray-on hair. The guy sold spray-on hair. We have healthy chocolate. Okay? That's a pretty easy. This guy was, I mean, this. And I YouTubed the commercial. It's horrid stuff. It's horrid. Anyway, spray on the hair. Let me take it a step further. Now we're talking about salespeople. We're talking about that we're all salespeople. Business people, the greatest businessmen in the last 50 years, arguably. Are these people salespeople? If you look at the essence of a Steve Jobs, he was a salesman. Jeff Bezos, Sam Walton, Warren Buffett. You think Walt Disney was a salesman? One of the greatest ever. Let me take it one step further. Now this might be a real stretch, but this is my feelings, honestly. Do you think Gandhi and Martin Luther King sold an idea? Of course they did, right? Social change through nonviolence. That's a tough step. And they sold it. Washington, you read the history of Washington and how his troops and men were starving, how they were freezing, how they wanted to just go home, and how he was able to keep them there for the cause. It was probably one of the greatest sales jobs in the world. Abraham Lincoln. All of these great men were salespeople. My point is this. We shouldn't be ashamed of selling. Everybody's a salesman. It's an honorable thing if you do it right. In fact, if you do it wrong, it defies the definition that I walked through. You're not a salesman. The question I have is this. If you're going to be a salesman, for our company specifically, where are you going to sell? Where do we sell? Well, I can tell you, if you look at the top 20 countries of network marketing sales worldwide, you see some interesting things. And the first thing, by the way, these top 20 countries represent 90% of network marketing sales worldwide. If you look at the top 20 countries, is that your phone, Jim? If you look at the top 20 countries, United States is the big boy on the block, right? $29 billion, almost $30 billion in sales. Then you see some interesting metrics, and I want to walk through kind of what we see based upon these metrics and why we do what we do, because it's important that you understand this. Japan, China, South Korea, Brazil. By the way, those top 5 countries, ending with Brazil, represent 60% of network marketing sales. 60%. But if you take the top 20 sales worldwide and you break them down, which I have, by region, here's what you find. It's very, very interesting. You'll find that by region, Asia represents 45% of network marketing sales worldwide. North America is 23%, South America is 18%, and Europe is 3%. I'm sorry, 13%, yes. Now what I did is I took each region. Now each region is not created equal. In some regions you have 10, 12 countries. In some regions you only have a couple of countries. So I took the total number of sales in each region and divided it by the number of countries that represent that region. And that gives us a per country amount that we can look at. We see that Asia, again, is number 1. $10.2 billion per country on average represents Asia. We're in North America. South America, $4.3 billion. It falls pretty dramatically. And then Europe is $3.5 billion per country. It's important to understand that we focus on the highest probability of success. That's important for us. We're not a $5 billion company yet. We need to make sure that we are responsible with where we expand. We want to make sure that we're doing things correctly. Now, if you take this regional breakdown and overlay it with our sales as a company, you find something really interesting. You see, Asia is 45%. We talked about that global sales. On our side, North America represents 82% of our sales. That makes sense. Our ownership is from the United States and Canada. Our leadership is from the United States and Canada. 82% makes sense. If you look at Europe, Europe is 13%. Now, you can say that Europe can do better or Europe can do worse, but the reality is, on a percentage basis, compared to global sales, we are on par with where we need to be as far as Europe goes. But Asia, 42.6% disparity in Asia. It's only 2.4% of our market, and it's the biggest market in the world as far as network marketing. Does it matter? It matters. Now, per capita contribution. If you take the number of sales in each country, number of sales in each country, and divide it by the population in that country, and that's a metric that I like because it shows the adoption of network marketing and it measures the efficiency of the actual distributors. Here's what we find. We find that in Japan, per capita, again, total number of network marketing sales in Japan divided by the population, Japan's 187.50. China, 12.50. Why does China fall so fast? Because there's 1.3 billion people in China. Korea, $265, very high. Malaysia, $100. Taiwan, $121. And Thailand, $30. Now, if you take that number and look and compare it to, which is my favorite metric to look at network marketing countries, and that is GDP per capita. The gross domestic product that a company produces divided by the population. Now, all the GDP per capita really tells us is affordability. Okay? And again, going from a probability standpoint, you want to make sure that your countries have a very high GDP per capita. By the way, our top 4 countries, United States, Canada, Norway, Sweden, represent 92% of our sales. And if you look at Norway and Canada and Sweden and the United States, what you find is the average GDP per capita is $47,000. By the way, those top 4 represent 92% of our business. If you look at Japan, Japan has a GDP per capita